Matsunaga, the teacher in charge of our class, was one of the skinniest people I've ever known, having had TB for years when he was young. He was a mild-mannered guy, the type who'd probably never raised his voice in his life. Throughout summer vacation he came to my house at least every other day. Being a quiet sort of person, though, he never said much other than "How's it going?" or "You're not letting this get to you, I hope." He also looked in on Adama just as often. Adama, apparently, would snarl at him, accusing all teachers of being stooges or capitalist lackeys, but Matsunaga would just nod and smile wryly and comment on the sunflowers in the garden or whatever, and then, after a while, he'd leave. His visits came on top of a full day of giving supplementary lessons at school, and involved taking a bus to my place, then going on later to Adama's mining town. I could see the bus stop from my bedroom window. After getting off the bus, you had to walk up a narrow lane and a long flight of stone steps. I used to watch Matsunaga huff and puff his way up the slope, stopping any number of times to rest. A teacher with a history of lung problems trudging uphill to arrive at my house dripping with sweat, not to lecture me or anything but just to ask how it was going. I soon found it hard to hate him. You may not understand this yet, Yazaki, but I'll tell you anyway. When I was in teachers college I had 6 major operations. My chest is a mass of ugly scars. I even had fainting spells and so on. It was frightening, but, you know, people can get used to anything. I actually got used to the operations and the anesthesia and the blackouts, and I started to think, oh well, nothing really matters that much. In summer, for example, there are sunflowers and cannas and other things in bloom, and all I have to do is look at them to feel that way, that nothing really matters much. Matsunaga used to say things like this from time to time. I'd stopped putting him down and had even begun to respect him, to think he was a hell of a teacher. In fact, but Adama and I were both a long way from nothing really matters. Adama was growing surlier each day, and by the time the second semester started, I too was getting pretty restless. The streets of a provincial city are empty of kids and grown-up men on weekday mornings. There's no one around but housewives and pensioners and infants and dogs. I remembered how unfamiliar the town had seemed whenever I came home early from elementary school. The smell of cut flowers would drift from under the half-raised shutter of the florists. The owner of the shoe store would be just opening up for the day, dusting his shelves and yawning. The sounds of TV shows I'd never seen would murmur out of open windows. Nursery school children would be dancing in a circle behind a wire fence, and old men would be crouched in the shade of trees, laughing together. The town was like a stranger to me then. This was the town I was confined to now that summer vacation had ended. I began to worry about my attendance figures, because I'd ditched a lot of classes even before my suspension. Just to think about being held back a year was enough to make me shudder. There was no way I could take another year at that school. One day when it was too rainy to take the dog for a walk and I was sitting at home playing the drums, the doorbell rang. Standing on the front step was Adama's mother. "Do you remember me, Ken? I wonder if I could have a word with you." She sounded pretty miserable. "Please don't tell Tadashi about this, though. He'd be angry." I was surprised to find that there wasn't a trace of Adama's accent in her voice. "I know coming here won't solve anything, but I don't have anyone else to discuss it with. I suppose you know that the mines in our town are on the verge of closing? Well, these are difficult times for my husband, and he's just too busy right now to concern himself with Tadashi's problems." She stiffened slightly and pressed a white handkerchief to her neck and forehead. "Oh, no," I thought, "what if she starts crying on me?" "I haven't talked to him for 2 or 3 days," I said. "Is he doing all right?" Adama's mother gave a heavy sigh and shook her head. She didn't say anything for a while, Don't tell me he's gone insane, I thought, and the thought terrified me. It was always the cool, calm, and collected types like Adama who tended to suddenly crack under pressure. Don't tell me he's tying ribbons in his hair, wearing a flower print yukata, and sitting at the organ, drooling and playing My Little Butterfly. To be honest, I've never seen Tadashi like this before. So it was true. I bet he sits outside at night howling at the moon rising over the slag heaps. Of all our children, Tadashi is the most like me. He was always such a good boy, so well behaved. If anything, I sometimes worried if he wasn't a bit too placid for a child. He never got emotional about things. I thought about telling her she was wrong there, that I'd seen him almost in tears after watching the boxing cartoon Joe Tomorrow, and snorting and gulping as he flipped through girly magazines, but I decided not to, and now he gets so worked up, so rude to his teachers. He's become more and more distant, even with me. I considered telling her that it would be even stranger for a high school senior to be still clinging to his mother's apron strings, but I didn't. Her eyes were filling with tears. Before he was confined to the house, he used to talk about you often, about his friend Ken. That's why I thought I'd like to talk with you a bit. What do you think about all this? All what? Well, college entrance exams, for example. What do I think of college entrance exams? Not much. Education in Japan today is designed not just to turn out useful members of society, but to sort people out and classify them as tools of the capitalist nation-state. I went on, discussing everything from the Joint Campus Action Movement, Marxism, the lessons of the 1960 Security Treaty fracas, Camus's absurdist novels, suicide and free sex, Nazism, Stalin, the emperor system and religion, the mobilization of students, the Beatles, and nihilism. Down to the degenerate apathy of the old man who ran the local barber shop. I'm afraid I don't really understand most of that. I could hardly say of course you don't. I don't really understand it either. So I told her that the generation gap was no one's fault and nothing to be ashamed of. I hadn't talked so much in a long time, and it made my throat dry. It was no fun talking to Matsunaga. All you got for your efforts was a wry smile, and it was too embarrassing trying to talk to my parents about things like this because we used the local dialect. Try discussing, for example, Camus is the plague in dialect and it would come out sounding something like, da plague, c, it don't be Jew about some disease, be a metaphor, be a symbol for fascism, communism, stuff like that. Anybody could tell immediately that you were just mouthing someone else's ideas. Chatting with your friend's mother, though, was a breeze. She'd never change your diapers, or slapped you and made you cry after you'd fought with your little sister over a sweet roll, or worn herself out carrying you around strapped to her back. You could say the first thing that came into your head and convince yourself it sounded intelligent. But I do understand to some extent. During the war, I did clerical work for an anti-aircraft battalion, and I saw soldiers being killed in air raids. You and Tadashi, you're trying to make a world where things like that don't happen, aren't you? I wasn't about to tell her that. No, I was only trying to draw attention to myself and attract girls. Actually, I think Tadashi's beginning to calm down a bit. Friends come to see him sometimes now, and, oh, well, I know it's not really allowed, but Mr. Matsunaga has been kind enough to overlook it once or twice. Just yesterday 2 very nice girls dropped by on their way home from the beach. Eh? One raised my head and gaped at her. Girls? You mean from our school? Yes, they're in a different class, though, I believe. A very sweet girl named Matsui-san, and another called Sato-san, I think, tall and rather attractive. Blood rushed to my head, and I didn't hear the rest. Lady Jane and Anne Margaret had been to Adama's house, Why would two refined, intelligent, courageous, and beautiful women go visit a guy who spoke a dialect you needed an interpreter to understand? And how could any lady be so fickle as to deceive and abandon the knight in shining armor who'd presented her with a copy of Cheap Thrills, on their way home from the beach? Did she say? Don't tell me they were in their bathing suits. No, surely not. But still, Lady Jane, with white straplines decorating her shoulders, fragrant with suntan lotion, goes way out in the boondocks, where there's nothing but slag heaps, to eat watermelon pulled fresh from some farmer's patch and cooled in a nearby mountain stream. And me, I get to console Adama's mother. Air raids? So what? You want to talk about real injustice? When Mursault shot the Arab, he blamed it all on the sun. I felt like Camus. Life is absurd. I telephoned Adama, still burning with rage. Hey, Ken, he said. My mother went to your house today, right? What the hell? He knew all about it. Sorry. She's still there? Just left. Your parents there? They're both teaching. Oh, that's right, so you were alone together? I was the perfect host, gave her a Baumkuchen and a glass of barley tea. Listen, you didn't, you didn't. What? You didn't try to kiss her, did you? Don't be a jerk. Hey, just kidding. No, see, when she asked me for your address today, I figured she was going to your place, so she really went, eh? What did she have to say? I didn't answer, I was pissed off, and I had my pride to maintain. How was I supposed to bring up the Lady Jane problem? A man who's been deceived by the one he loves is at a big disadvantage. What did you talk about? Don't tell me you sat there bad-mouthing me together. No, the truth is, listen, Adama, don't let this get you down. Huh? Don't go into shock on me. What do you mean? Nah, never mind, I can't bring myself to tell you anyway. What? Let's hear it. I'd cut out my tongue before I tell you. It's about me? Of course it's about you. Come on, man, tell me, please. Promise you won't freak? Spit it out. Well, it seems your mother talked it over with your father, and they're thinking about pulling you out of school and putting you to work. You've got relatives in Okayama, right? Yeah. Apparently they want you to work in an orchard up there. By next week you'll be up to your neck in peaches. What's the matter, man? You're losing your touch. Oh, yeah? Being a brilliant liar was about the only thing you had going for you, too. Thanks a lot. Just kidding. Oh, by the way. Adama chortled. Cool-headed people don't do much chortling, and when they do it's not a pretty sound. Matsui and Sato came to see me yesterday. What? I said, feigning surprise. They said they were on their way home from swimming at Utanura. Utanura was a beach just down the road from Adama's house. Is that right? I sounded aloof, indifferent. I tell you, though, man, I'm not used to getting things like this from chicks. I don't really like it, you know? What are you talking about? This letter I got, it's just not my kind of thing. Letter? A love letter? Well. A love letter? Well, I guess you'd call it that. It's in this kind of old-fashioned language, you know, to express my admiration and respect, and all that. It's not for me, man. Give me Rimbaud any day. The world went dark before my eyes. Oh, yeah, and Matsui asked me to give her your address, so I did. You don't mind, right? I couldn't care less about Matsui. Chicks like that, I tell you, man, they got no brains, no culture, no sense of gratitude. You serious? Sure, man, I mean, what kind of a broad is that? I give her a copy of Cheap Thrills and she doesn't even send me a thank you note. Look at my father, he writes to thank people every single time he gets a present. Present? That was Azaki's record. To hell with her, anyway. I like Matsui, man, she's got class. I bet you wouldn't catch her writing this old-fashioned crap, like Sato. What? Sato's got big knockers, but Matsui's a lot smarter. Adama, the love letter was from Sato? Yeah. A light came on in my brain, 10,000 watts. Matsui's not human, man, she's an angel. She's in human form, but she's an angel sent to me by God. After expressing an inability to figure out how my brain worked, Adama told me to hurry up and finish the script, then hung up. That evening, a bouquet of roses was delivered to my house. Aren't they pretty? My sister said, clapping her hands, "They're for you, Ken, it's like in the movies." I held her hand and we skipped around the room together singing "Mary Had a Little Lamb." There was a note attached to the bouquet, hoping these 7 red roses will take your mind off your troubles, if only for a while, Jane. My sister arranged the flowers in a glass vase for me. I put them on my desk and gazed at them all night long. Camus was wrong, life wasn't absurd, it was rose-colored. I finished the film script in 2 days. The title was Etude for a Baby Doll and a High School Boy. Long titles were popular back then. I stayed up till dawn writing it. My father once told me about something that happened when I was 3. At a swimming pool he took me to. I'd nearly drowned in the sea once before, so I was afraid of water and wouldn't go in. He tried yelling at me, coaxing me, prodding me with a stick, and bribing me with ice cream, but I just kept screaming and crying. Then a cute little girl about my age appeared. She called to me from the pool. I hesitated but finally jumped in, for her sake. When I finished the script I took a short nap, then started writing on the text for the play. It took me 3 days to write it. The title was Beyond the Blood-Red Sea of Negativity and Rebellion. There were only 2 characters, a young divorcee and her younger brother, who'd failed to get into university. A play? Adama said. Who's going to act in it? Me and Lady Jane. Her I can understand, but you, can you act? Hey, I was the second of the 3 little pigs in elementary school, man. I'll direct it too, of course. You're not going to have nude scenes and stuff, like hair, are you? What do you think? But I bet you try to throw in a kissing scene or something. Better not, man, Matsui won't like it. I crossed out the kissing scene as soon as we hung up. One day shortly after the roses died and were carefully laid to rest in a drawer of my desk, Matsunaga showed up, smiling and saying good news. Our punishment was over. After 119 days,